We're live on YouTube, so we can go and get started. I don't think we need to do a full intro,
Yeah.
but
No, no. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Radical Roots podcast. Today is January, what is it, the 28th? I'm lost for time at this point. Yeah, January 28th, 2025. I am your co-host, Payron Baxter,
and I'm your co-host Ram.
and we are the Radical Roots podcast where we dig deep to reach high and we always push progress through action. We're just doing a quick breakaway episode because sometimes me and Ron, we can get to talking and the things on our agenda we actually don't end up getting to, but there's a few things we want to touch base on before we get to our actual full Thursday episode. We're giving out a little extra sneak peek. If you do follow us on our social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, we're all the places we're at, Spotify, YouTube. But please make sure that you're following us and give us a like. But yeah, there's a few points that we definitely want to touch on today that a lot of folks have been asking us about, and we kind of felt like actually we didn't follow all the way through. But what's been happening in the Trump administration, Rom, as you know, we're a week-ish in, which feels like it's in dog years at this point. But they're really trying to pull back the 20th century. I've said that before, but there is something that they've also been really focusing on. One of our folks that gave us a like, Miss Sherilyn Ifill, who was again on the short list for the Supreme Court. She has a program down at Howard University Law School about the 14th Amendment. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the amendments, especially the slave amendments that were meant to give us, for our future. But I saw a clip from MSNBC Joy Reid. I love Joy Reid, but I just wanted to kind of correct the notion because if she was saying this, then I think it's important for us to really get that right. But that's why I want to just jump on and make this into something where folks can consume and understand what these laws were for. Before they just kind of get into like, well, that's not really for us, and that's not really for them, or that is for us, and that's not for them. Because when we get free, everybody gets free. But yeah, just want to kind of jump into that today,
All right,
and
well,
then and then, and then of course touch on some DEI stuff later.
yeah, and we can also touch on the shock and awe campaign that this administration is doing. I think we talked about it on our first episode. Kind of being the calm, even though it wasn't all that calm, but it was definitely the calm before the storm. That they
Yep.
were going to be doing a shock and awe campaign. That it's a form of psychological warfare, for lack of a better term. And that's exactly what we're seeing here, and this kind of design, everything we've seen, in the past week is designed to weigh on us, try to break us
Hmm.
down, and cause confusion. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that a little bit as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No question. No question. Well, yes. Let's go and tee up that first clip just to kind of jump in here, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
All right, and this is the Robert Garcia.
Yeah, this is going to be Joy Reid speaking with Rep. Robert Garcia from District 42, representing Long Beach, California. And they're just talking about how they're fighting back against Trump, but it kind of delves into some amendment talk. And just want to touch on that.
Our favorite restaurant, you're working in a small business, you're part of our country. So this is, I think, a moment, like you said, that as a community, as a country, we have to look deep inside and think, who are we? Are we going to be good people? Are we going to be humane people? Are we going to be true patriots that believe that all of us are part of this country? We all helped build this country. I think what Donald Trump is doing is dangerous, but we've got to fight back. This is not a moment to work with Donald Trump, to work with the Republicans on an immigration solution. They're going to steamroll us. We've got to fight like hell.
Yeah, I think people forget that when the 14th Amendment was passed, it was because a lot of the enslaved people, they were either born in Africa or their parents were. They were considered not American citizens because they were
Oof.
Africans, right? And so it was built around that. And so the idea should be deeply offensive to everyone. What does the
Are you
fight
stop
look
it there?
like? Our business owners.
So, I love Joy Reid. And again, that was Joy Reid speaking with Rep. Robert Garcia from District 42, represent Long Beach, California. And her point was that I just wanted to just touch on, because I think a few people have said this, and I've heard over the past time, we're getting into these debates, especially with some hoteps. But the 14th Amendment, wasn't because we were born in Africa. It was because they gave them the status of not being human. And I'm talking about our ancestors. And so, just 2 points on the 14th Amendment I want to educate folks on. There was no citizenship requirement prior to the attempt after the Civil War and Civil Rights Amendments to address the question raised by Dred Scott and the legal status of African people in this criminal enterprise known as the United States of America. Citizenship is a very new concept in human history, Rom. You won't find this in ancient Egypt or in African countries. You won't find it in most places. I mean, like show you're a documented member of society type stuff. This is one thing that comes in the wake to attempts to exclude people, to regulate people's legal status, to create a legal universe where you can say you're with us and not with them. So the citizenship question raised by the 14th Amendment was really an attempt to address the status of African people who have been captives who are never supposed to be citizens in the first place. So I just want to just kind of really iron that out for people who think that the 14th Amendment was about us being in Africa, because that's just not the case. In fact, when you read the Federalist Papers, specifically 54 and 55, you see Alexander Hamilton arguing what is the status of these Africans. So it's in the Constitution. A lot of folks like to quote the three-fifths clause without actually reading the Constitution. And it's really about private property and citizenship, because people were property. So Africans come into the United States universe as property initially. So that's why this question comes up. And this is after the bloodiest conflict in U.S. history. They bring Africans into the legal universe by being born here. And that just doesn't apply to Black people, that applies to all people. And that fight continues to this day. And understand this, that question was applied to indigenous people all the way up until 1924, because to this day, they're still kind of considered quasi-sovereign or citizens. So I just really wanted to nail that point about what the 14th Amendment was about, where it came from. It was not about our ancestors being born in Africa. It was about private property and people being that property. And then this is where we got the idea of like, oh, now you have to have documentation to be a citizen. And a lot of people, I just don't think they have that understanding. So I want to just make that point to that, because when I heard that, I was like, man, I want to address this, because if Joy Reid, who I love to death, believes that, the history it belies the history.
Mm-hmm. That's a good correction. Thank you for that. I don't really have a lot of comments on that. What do you think? What do you think that now that they're trying to attack the 14th Amendment? What do you think that the end goal is?
So yeah, I mean, the 14th Amendment it does a lot. The 14th Amendment allows us to have freedom of movement through state lines, because all these were slave laws or ex-slave laws. So the ability to have birthright citizenship. So everything they're attacking is the 14th Amendment. Section 2 or is it Article 3 of the 14th Amendment is about insurrection. So these are all civil rights or Civil War era problems, right? Are we people? Can we move? When the question came up about abortion travel and can women go across state lines, that was a 14th Amendment question, again, rooted in our ancestors' ability to be able to be considered full citizens. So when folks want to talk about, what's happening with women or trans people or this group or that group of people, it always goes back to they want to take our citizenship away first and foremost. And they want to correct what they feel like the problem was of the Civil War, which was, of course, this history they're trying to rewrite to this day. So that is the longer goal. And Sharon, as I said earlier, Sharon Eiffel, who was shortlisted to be on the Supreme Court, has a program right now at Howard Law School where she is teaching young lawyers. I don't know if you have to be in law school to even go to this, but she's teaching them about the 14th Amendment and how all the different ways they're attacking it. And they parcel it off where you don't realize they are attacking some of the foundational, because the 13th Amendment allows, it's illegal to be enslaved except if you're a prisoner, right? So slavery has never ended. I make sure my son I remind him of that slavery never ended in this country. And the 14th Amendment are all of our enumerated laws to make sure that we have citizenship. So it's very important that if we've got to have a firmer understanding of this question always goes back to I guess Alexander Hamilton said, "What's the status of these Africans?" And I think I said on a few episodes ago where how they conflate the term American and whiteness and how it becomes one thing. That ultimately allows folks to not see us as human. So when we're talking about not getting those rights, it's because they've been chipping away at the 14th Amendment since they passed that damn thing. So I do believe that's the goal. Oh, and again, then the insurrectionists cannot be in Congress or be in any sort of position. 14th Amendment. Donald Trump wants to get rid of that, right? So these are the things that like that amendment is so important. I know we talk about the first and the second, but that amendment is so important. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and no, don't be sorry. I don't have a lot to say tonight, but one of the other things that happened today or was said today was the White House press secretary. I don't even know who her name is, but
I don't know either, but
she
totally
basically
unqualified.
she basically said the constitutional amendment of birthright citizenship is unconstitutional. So for a press secretary to get up there and say that is wild. To, I mean, you're just a press secretary. Two, but you're representing
Right.
presidential administration in your one weekend, and to brazenly say that. And so to say it is one thing, and to see, I think that we're basically hurtling towards them trying to suspend the Constitution. I think with the chaos that is bound to happen. I mean, right now we're essentially the only thing that's keeping chaos and completely going haywire is the courts. Things being held up in the courts. So I think at
Yep.
the 11th hour today they stopped or put a hold on the
The
executive
federal the,
order,
the federal freeze on loans and
fed-
grants.
federal freeze on loans and grants, which came out this morning. Um, and I think when I woke up, I was just thinking like, that's crazy because
People
my
were
brain.
breaking down, man, on social media, especially them Trump voters. They were breaking down. Like, no, I don't have a job. I can't afford my these are my SNAP benefits.
And yeah, and understand that the people who are directly affected, and but in my brain, I'm trying to think about like ways that I would be indirectly affected.
Right.
Whether it's a business I work with that has federal grants, I mean, or if there's a nonprofit which are already potentially being under attack as well. And then, the way that my brain thinks is risk, right? And the worst case scenarios, because, like I mentioned before, I'm in compliance and risk. I always kind of making those calculations in my head. And the other thing, that I do a lot of or have done a lot is what's called like change control. So when you make changes, and I think that's kind of like the OMB. There's a couple of government organizations that look for the effects that a potential policy would have,
Hmm.
changes to law that would have on. And they're not doing that. They're not doing that due diligence. They're not understanding the risk. So even though they want to do 100 things maliciously, there's 200 more things that are going to happen incidentally that no one's really accounting for, because it's like
Right.
dominoes, like all these things and all these things happening at once, which is even it's going to be chaos. And they're going to say, well, we need to suspend the Constitution to restore
Order.
order and potentially even martial law. And so that's what we're looking at now, and I think it's a little bit more serious than it was yesterday, right? Or the last time we talked. So,
Yeah.
uh, um,
No,
talking about
you're
the
right, man.
14th Amendment that goes out the window, and there's a lot of things that are riskier, and I don't think I
It's
mean, this is what they've been saying. And so Republicans, all of them have been over, all what, 50, how many are there? 53 in the Senate. They're giving him his way. They're giving him everything he wants. These corporations are capitulating. They're giving them everything he wants. Google's changing the name of the Gulf of, because
America,
it's being updated to, so, I mean, where do you
it
think like, we're headed with the 14th Amendment and all these, the Constitution?
yeah. Well, I mean, I try to tell folks when they were going in on Pete Hegseth and Christy Nome and what's the WWE lady, McMahon, and all these
Mm.
folks. They're lining up. They're like they're not qualified, and that person's not qualified, and oh you're gonna turn down Kamala Harris, who was qualified. And I'm like, folks, that you have to realize this is a demolition job. This is not a propping up of a political cabinet that is willing to go in and scrutinize the numbers and make sure things are actually efficient. No, just like, and I think the memes have been going around where folks have been really, I think they're really sharing the history of Germany with the Beer Hall push to him regaining power and what he's done. It's the exact same playbook. We're at the part where we're past the push. He's back in power. He has the oligarchs around him. He's attacking trans people. He is saying all the problems are these other people. He is an ineffectual leader, but he's charismatic. So we're at that point. We're at that point where he consolidated power into the hands of a few people. And as you were saying earlier, you got the Musk, the Bezos, and the Zuckerbergs, and the Andreessens, and these tech billionaires. And I don't call them the broligarchy because I ain't got no bros like that. They just are oligarchs. I think even the media tries to soften them. The broligarch, I mean, they make them fun. Like they're not fun. These are yeah, they're awkward, but they're still violent, crazy people that want to dismantle my life. And I'm not gonna go down fighting. But I think that's the end game, man. Is just this is the demolition job. And you don't have to be a genius to blow some shit up. And that's what's going on right now. And the thing about folks, but then there's this like these butting heads, right? You got the white Christian evangelicals, you got like Mike Johnson, and then you got the grifters like Donald Trump, but then you got the oligarchs like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and they all have this white nationalist mindset, right? They kind of have this, but they have different shades of it, and they're starting to kind of run into each other because remember the whole H-1B problem? But
Hmm.
it seemed like a million years ago. The H-1B thing with Vivek Ramaswamy, and
Hmm.
then his ass got booted. Like, so there's a certain level of like, yeah, the oligarchs want more exploitable labor. They can hold their citizenship over their head to kick them out the country. If not, do what we need to do. But then you got the on the ground Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert types who are not in Congress who are just like, no, I don't want any brown people in this country. Get them all out here. And then you got the Mike Johnsons who want this hierarchical, almost antebellum like South world they want to create. And those eventually those even though their end game, their interests are converging, the way they get there is all over the place. But I don't want people to be fooled to think that they still can't do a lot of damage because even in totalitarian governments, there are always a bunch of clown cars. There's always a bunch of idiots that are bumping heads and are screaming at each other, but they do a lot of damage to the people. So I don't think like, oh, they're super inept, and they might be super inept. But at the end of the day, they're here for shock and awe, and that's the point of all of this stuff, man. And to your point about the corporations rolling back, we didn't really touch on this, but the executive order, from the Equal Employment Opportunity Executive Order of 1965, when he rolled that back, it made me think about this quote, and I want to bring it up here. But and this is for our people, and I had this quote from Dr. Amos Wilson, who wasn't a black he's gone now, but he was a black theoretical psychologist, social theorist, pan-African thinker, scholar, author and professor of psychology at City University of New York. And his book was The Falsification of the African Consciousness, where he had this quote and just stuck out to me throughout all this stuff that I wanted to bring up and just let the folks know. This was his quote. There are so many of us that believe fair housing laws, civil rights laws, voting laws, and so forth guarantee our freedom. That is a delusion. What a flight into fantasy. Laws are no stronger than their enforcers. The same people who pass them are the same people who are responsible for enforcing them. If the people who enforce the laws no longer decide to do so, the laws are of no value and have no power. Therefore, if if the people who are responsible for enforcing the laws change their attitudes, then the treatment of those people whose freedom is protected by those so-called laws is changed as well. And that's what we're going through right now, Rom. And I just want folks to understand that like we have to understand that like these laws, these rules are only up to how big your army is. I'm sure you've heard like when people talk about if the Supreme Court does something crazy and then this new Trump administration and they try to say, hey, you can't do that, Pete Hegseth is going to say, well, you and what army? Right?
Right.
Like it's only going to be up to how much you can enforce this stuff. After slavery ended, we still had 100 years of terror because laws were not enforced to protect us, just because the laws were on the books. But if you don't have people that are invested to that law and upholding it, terror will still reign free. And that's where we're at right now.
Right. And I think my question would be like, well, to what degree we're facing like our freedoms, being taken away because, like to your point with Hegseth is now in control of the entire military. He's in charge of the largest budget in the world,
That's right.
um,
Largest
which
employer.
means which means that there is an insane amount of concentrated power, as Kamala Harris referred to the military as the most lethal force in the world, is now going to have to make potentially, well, I think very likely have to make decisions if they're going to follow unlawful orders against the American people on American soil.
Yeah,
Um, that's my opinion.
I think it's a good one.
And so the other thing is, you know, and one of the questions I asked my friends this morning, I texted them, haven't heard back. You kind of give it throughout the warning signal, but I said, well, what makes us any different than Nazi Germany when Hitler took control? That took 53 days for him to completely consolidate and take over the entire German government. Uh, what it makes us unique because we've already seen, and I've been saying this since I've been talking about Germany and Nazi Germany for since 2015, really. I mean, 2016. And so, but the playbook, the timeline has continued to progress. Just like you mentioned, the beer hall push, and where we're at now is, it's just going, and it's like clockwork, right? It's like almost like a splitting image, in my opinion. Um, and so, what makes us unique? And I don't think there is anything, and I never got
No,
an answer. So,
no.
um, uh,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know
I
what to
think
tell people.
we have this weird like dichotomy here in America where it's like on one end we are like, oh no, we can go on missionary trips to these other countries to save them, but we also don't want them to come here, right? So like that's
Absolve.
one that's one thing that Americans do. It's a very colonial mindset, right? But then there's also like the idea that it can't happen here. I do forget who has the quote, but it's like um, it hasn't happened here, therefore it can happen here. That means it won't happen here. And it's like that and that exceptionalism is what really has so many folks in a stranglehold right now. And then on top of that, we have, a two-party system. When one party is the Ku Klux Klan, the other party is Lockheed Martin, that is actively, being toothless in this moment, with no spine. They're texting about, they're tweeting about gas prices or what's going on, but they're not actively saying, hey, this is the threat. This is what we need to be getting ready for. This is what, we're going to speak out. We're going to use our power today, right now, to fight back against this. It's like, oh, we're going to work with our friends. And I think what Rep Garcia was saying on that clip with Joy Reid, that no, this is not the time to work with these people, and anything they put out is going to be in bad faith. I think I was telling somebody in one of our groups that um, this concept of like bipartisanship in this era, is an error. Like you can't have bipartisanship with people that want to hurt a certain amount of people because the concessions we have to give up will have to be you have to throw away a certain group of people. And we've
Mhm.
seen that over the past 40 years with this, Obama deported more people than Trump. Obama deported more people than Joe Biden. Joe Biden deported more people than Trump. So it's this embrace of fascist tactics. And I think at this point we have, to a degree, two right-wing parties. The Democratic Party is not a progressive party. And that's also the truth. It's a group of people that helps the two-party system stay intact by saying, hey, don't vote for those Republicans or you'll get World War III, and then we see a genocide executed and underwritten under Joe Biden. Hey, watch out! And I think the final boondoggle, which was abortion, that left under Joe Biden's administration, and not one time did he use his bully pulpit to talk about the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court being a rotten institution that needs to be changed, if not dismantled. And these powers of the Supreme Court weren't always there. The Supreme Court used to be very an empty court. And the one thing that's worse than a bought and paid for court is a court with no power. And that's what it was like around the time of the Civil War. So as we look at the long arc of history, to your point of where we are in this moment, I think there is just this um, gap of people wanting to know what to do, but we just don't have anybody telling people what they can do. I know that didn't really answer your question. I trailed off at that point, but uh, but no, I'm just talking from the heart right now. We're much like
I in
I'm frustrated to a degree.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and but to the point about the Democrats, I do want to just hone in on that a little bit. I mean, from a national perspective, I don't really see. I mean, we know that it's not a progressive party, but I don't think there's any other choice but to um, run to the left, run more progressive, run liberal, whatever you leftist, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. Like, to be honest, like if you ask me what the difference between progressive, leftist, liberal, I don't really give a shit. Like it doesn't matter to me. All I know is that
No, yeah,
it needs to be radical. And this is the time to a revolution. At this point, I think the Democrats are in complete danger of just losing it all because um, the revolution will happen with or without them.
that's right.
And if it happens without them, then it's going to be a far harder, more road to travel. And I don't think any of us really want that, but it's necessary. So whether it's under the Democratic Party flag or not,
Right.
we just had a MAGA party that flies Nazi flags at their events and throws up Hitler signs at their events, and they have Dr. Phil parading out immigrants live on
Bro,
TV like it's
bro,
an episode of Cheaters, and so Democrats are still over here filing court briefs and
it's not funny.
talking about hey, they're for the the middle we're we're
Middle
for the middle
class.
class, and what about those price of eggs? Like, come on now, we move on. We're talking like
Right.
we're
Like
that's
what?
done. Like, we get the joke. Okay, it's done. No one's we know it's not about price of eggs anymore. I don't want to hear that from a Democratic Party, the party platform. And I don't know what Jamie Harrison's doing. I know he's on his way out, but like that doesn't mean that we just flop around and leave everyone, because everyone's looking for a leader right now. Everyone's looking to
That's
turn to
right.
something, and this is the time where you bring people into the party that want to. Um, and where it's floundering, right? So I don't know. I'm looking forward to. I guess they're supposed to pick it on Friday, Saturday. Pick somebody on Saturday.
It's February 1st.
Yeah,
Okay, so is
It's
that
Saturday. It's
Saturday? Okay,
Saturday. So
that's the
we'll
election.
look to it. By the way, speaking of which, we got this Sunday's episode, February 2nd. We got the North Carolina Democratic chair, or current Democratic chair, Anderson Clayton. She's running for to attain to keep her seat. So we're excited to have her on, ask her some questions, learn a little bit about her. I know you know her.
Yeah.
And I don't like, I mean, I know of her.
Yeah, no, I mean,
uh,
what you see on TV, I get you.
but excited to have her on the podcast. But yeah, I'd love to have her insight. And I actually don't know who the people are running that well. I know a few of the names, I know a few of the favorites, but I haven't actually looked. I'm just like looking at what's happening, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like, this is the
Yeah,
time to
no,
start capturing the
I agree. I mean,
the
because you
energy.
get, well, there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of unsettled energy, right? They have anxiety. They want, I mean, again, folks, the anxiety lives in the gray. I said that, I think, last episode. But, what are we offering? As we see our rights being pulled away, as we're seeing our civil rights, or when we're seeing rights that we know are meant to attack Black people, right? Like, again, when they called the mayor of Baltimore a DEI mayor, we knew. I mean, if you didn't know what DEI meant, the N word with a hard R, then that's all you need. So again, with all this attack on DEI, and we know DEI helps white women, we know it helps differently able, but when they're attacking that, there is a foundational attack that is attached to that and is meant to really harm black people, even though we know it ultimately helped white people more than it helped black people. And it's performative over the last 4 years. That's why so many people were able to throw off their deeply held values because it wasn't so deeply held.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to talk about DEI before we hop
yeah,
off.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
before that, the one thing I was listening to, um, I was listening to Jasmine Crockett in the car today, and she was live on Instagram, and as I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, like I'm getting pumped up listening to her. Like that's the
Yeah,
energy we need. Like, and
that's right.
people want they either gonna get involved and they need to feel inspired, or they're gonna just check out and close their eyes and give up. Because I'll tell you what, today I was like, man, they can have DEI, like meaning, and let me clarify, they can have the word DEI,
Right.
but and I texted you and you pushed back a little bit, and
So yeah, but I got your point. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm like, because at the end of the day, it's the things that are behind it, the initiatives they're doing behind it. And
Right.
DEI didn't exist 6 years ago, really, like not like that.
Nope.
Affirmative action. I don't know when affirmative action went away, but I remember
It went
that
away.
being
Oh, you mean like as like a buzzword?
like they affirmative action was illegal, became illegal in I don't know sometime in the early 2000s, 2010s, right? I mean, affirmative action was a
Well,
thing.
affirmative action became. You mean like the Supreme Court took it away?
Yeah, isn't that what happened? Or am I
Yeah,
like
that was last.
misremembering?
That was last year.
Affirmative action?
Yeah, yeah. That was a part of last year's court docket when they took away affirmative action, and the Democrat Party didn't say anything about that either because they were trying to. It was during a campaign year. They were trying to appeal to those suburban white women. They felt like suburban white women. They also don't care about affirmative action because it was always coined and branded as something for black people. But we know again by the data, the number one beneficiary of affirmative action was white women.
Okay. Yeah, for colleges. But that's okay. I'll have to look up. I guess I am misremembering. But DEI is fairly new. And it was the thing
Yeah,
about DEI is like it's voluntary. Especially for like a private business to have these initiatives, and it's not about quotas. I
right, right.
when I joined my company, it was pretty white, and I was like, I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but I was like, I don't know if I want to be there because I like having like diverse people around me. I grew up in diverse areas.
But
I
why is that? Why is that? Why do you like to have a diverse people? Like why?
uh, well, it's because I can relate to them more. They can understand me.
You can't
I
relate to
like
white
to.
people?
I know. Not like to a degree. Yeah,
No,
to a degree, but
no.
like there's certain things, right? Like the same way, like I'll code switch. Like I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so uh, I like diversity, right? I like having diverse backgrounds, diverse
You're
mindsets.
a mother woker, you would say.
Mother world. But I also, so anyways, I joined the company as a leadership team, was involved with the initial charter of DEI. We have a DEI, it's a woman-owned company, but so it wasn't that hard. But like by me joining, I had people who I brought over that were from my previous company that were just, they were worthy. They were some of the best. I brought over white, black, Indian, Hispanic, and our company's not just because of me, but it's our company is way more diverse than it was. Our leadership
Yeah,
team is diverse. There's more women and minorities than there is white men. But
right.
there's nothing wrong with like white, like it's like, and the company runs great.
Smoothly. Great. Right.
And I would never say that we lowered our standards to
Sure
hire
did.
any of those people. We didn't even look at what we did do was we looked in different places. So like
Right.
having those connections that I had because I have that
Mm-hmm.
diversity, looking in schools, looking at places where our cybersecurity team when it first started was all women and minorities. Like it was like
Mm.
that
Mm.
diverse, and for in the IT space that's rare. And I
Yeah,
stand
yeah.
by like now it's even more diverse, and it has we one of the best teams in the industry. And so,
I mean,
you compare
you're a
that
little bit
to,
biased. You're a little bit biased there, man.
yeah, well, maybe, but I stand on that. And but listen. But then we compare that to cronyism. We compare that to legacy.
Hello.
We compare that to those circles who these people don't even know. They don't even know. They don't even associate with our type, right?
That's right.
And so there's no diversity of thought. They don't bring
Nope.
anything new to the table.
Nope.
Especially if you're a company that's marketing towards, you're like a Target, for example, you're marketing towards multiple communities. If you just had an all white marketing team, you're going to put out some stupid stuff and it doesn't make sense and it doesn't land.
That's right.
Um, and
I
so they
always tell
haven't
folks,
done.
I always tell folks, I'm like, you can get 10 cool white boys in a room. You can get 10 Justin Timberlakes pre-DUI in a room. And I guarantee you, whatever idea they'll come up with might be awesome, might be cool, and I guarantee it'll be racist. And these are gonna be some cool white boys, all got black girlfriends, all got black wives or whatever, and that's because they don't, to your point, don't have the diversity of opinion and the diversity of thought and just the shared worldview of my experience may be not their experience and my experience may not be your experience, right? Like, so it's just this inherent, like, hey, we're all existing up here, but we may not know what it's like for someone if you're in a wheelchair or if you have crutches. Like, not even
Mhm.
about race all the time, but just like
Yeah,
different modes of life.
yeah.
We have a woman, she might need a pumping room, or we have someone, we might need a prayer room for our Muslim friend or our Muslim coworker. Like, it's just that level of like, the
Empathy.
world does not revolve around white male straight people.
Yeah, it's empathy, right? Like I'm
Bingo.
not I'm not a woman, but if I like I guess I can imagine like if I had to
Gonna,
get breast milk for a baby, like
right,
I want to have a like space and feel comfortable and not have to do it in a bathroom at work, right?
right.
And if I have a tradition from my religion and I need to pray at a certain time of the day and want to do it quietly, yeah, it makes me feel better to have a space to do that as opposed to doing it in a closet. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's not like this whole boogeyman they're making it out to be like it's a quota or that hey, I'm gonna get you. You know what? You two are even, so I'm gonna give it to this guy because he's a handicapper. He's black. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it's not how it works. But people don't want it. People don't care. They don't really care. You
No,
know.
and my thing
So
is like it is now. I mean, because it's been like we're on day what 8, going on day 8 of the Trump administration, and I think stuff's been going into overdrive, right? Like I saw that. I think I sent this to you, but like Rutgers University, they were going to have this HBCU intern forum, and I guess they've been doing it every year, where HBCU graduates or students, they come up to Rutgers in New Jersey, and Rutgers is a very diverse school. And due to the executive order, they canceled that. And I mean, I'm like, so much for states' rights. Rutgers is a state school. So much for states' rights. And, it's infuriating because, one, the cowardice. And the dean, and let me tell you this, their dean, they just got their first black dean, Rom, and he quit September 2024. Now he's still there on contract, but he's ending. But that just shows you the conditions that have existed in this country under a Democratic president, where folks are like, I can't do this anymore. And it was a virtual. It wasn't even like in person. It was a virtual, yeah, a virtual conference. So it wasn't even like you had to get room and board. Like, but this is the fear of justice. And when folks capitulate to stuff like this, instead of being like, you know what, I don't think there's anything wrong with connecting with other students from other places to see how we can help each other. To your point, a diversity of understanding and experience. And guess what? They're going to teach us stuff because we might be 10 Justin Timberlakes pre-DUI in a room, and we might need to get some Roms in the room. We might need to get some Payrons in the room. We might need to get some Jamiris in the room, or whatever the case may be. But I just thought that was so cowardly. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was or do you have anything on that? Just what are your
I
thoughts on it? So,
I think that here's what I think. I think that what's behind the DEI matters more. I think that Trump is easily manipulated and fooled. Now, I can't tell who's doing what and who's just trying to appease them and to keep going um, with their mission. I do think that it's a bad look that all these companies are capitulating and there's no unity, no stance or anything. Um, that ship has sailed because once a few have, then everyone's free to follow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they say right now the most highly educated or college educated group is Black women,
Right.
college graduates. So they can take it away. Honestly, like these people are qualified. I personally wouldn't want to work in a space that doesn't want me or doesn't have diversity. I'm the prize,
Right.
right? So I'll go somewhere else. I'll go to a place that values me and who I am in a diverse place, and those places will continue to exist. 70 million people, 50% of the country didn't just disappear. And so there, we will persevere as we always have, but it's going to be it's just a harder path. And I feel like it's a win to these people, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I don't know if it's a win. And I think we just have to start focusing on the big picture of what's happening and prepare for
Yeah.
that.
My wife. So I think I told you my wife does DEI work.
Hmm.
She's high up for a company in Charlotte, and they had a DEI symposium on Monday, yesterday, and it was like 15 different companies, 15 different other DEI practitioners. She said predominantly 99% were Black women. I think she said there was one Latina woman and then like one gay white man, and they were all talking about like what's been going on and they were talking about rebranding and like just trying to change it and taking and she just said this and she did not mean this way, but I stopped her. She said, we'll take like the bits and pieces from different companies. I said, but Liz, do we as Black people and as women and queer and whatever who's not a white straight man, I think we deserve more than bits and pieces. And she's like, no, I wasn't saying that. I was like, no, I'm not. But I think just if we talk about breaking this up, because the racists say we need to break this up. That is why it is that to me scares me, right? Like the preemptive move, right? And it is more than just what's happening in our corporations, right? It's happening on our college campuses, it's happening in the government, and they're trying to lay off all these workers, right? So it's all these things that are happening that are really saying that we need to go back into the closet because at the end of the day, you can rebrand yourself, but when you start moving around and start trying to shift the pieces, because the thing about the right and these white supremacist Christian nationalists, they're insatiable. It'll never be enough. You change it from DEI to the best people or don't treat people like shit group or whatever the case may be. Eventually it's going to be like, okay, what are we doing? And then the guy that started all this, Chris Rufo, do you know who that is?
No, I don't know.
So Chris Rufo, he had this tweet in 2021, and he got famous because of this, where he was basically like, "We're going to take this back when the CRT hype was all over the place." He was like, "We're going to take CRT and we're going to decodify it, and we're going to codify it to mean basically blackness, and we're going to take it everywhere." And it was a tweet thread, and he did that out in the open. Now, this same guy just met with Donald Trump in the White House.
Mhm.
So my question is, how do we fight back at our institutions? Like schools and corporations and governmental bodies and
Man, man, you gotta take it to the streets. To be honest, like when I was in school and out of school in the early my 20s, we were in the streets in Chicago. Students protest, like that's where activism. I think there's an energy in that uh, in higher education because you come enlightened, you're young, you're looking at what's happening. I don't know what this generation's doing. Like I'm not trying to rag on the generation. I don't know if there's that same energy because this is more of a social media generation, more of a I don't know. I don't lackadaisical. I don't know for better lack of. I don't know. I just don't know is what I'm saying. I'm not seeing a lot, uh, but that's what people tend to understand because it brings attention. You know, in many cases, violence or damage to property uh, wakes people up. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that these are the type of things that worked in the past, in the recent past. Um, but right now, I feel like everyone's just kind of sleeping, um, and we're not even protesting. I know you don't. You feel like I think you have a different view on protest and their effectiveness.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to do it all. You know, not one way works. I think folks want to find one way that is comfortable for them, and they're like, "Well, that's enough." But it's like you have to do all the things. And I know folks are tired, and they're banking on us being tired. They're banking on us being so mentally exhausted and turned inside out that all we can do is throw our hands up and go along with the flow. But that is exactly what happened in Germany. That's what happened in the antebellum South. I mean, I try to remind folks that during the because we got into this big debate on our Facebook group that folks talking about that restaurant where that gentleman didn't speak up, and a lot of the white folks were like, "Oh, you're fine for not speaking up." And the thing about it is, there are people in that group, Rom, who are old enough that they lived through the civil rights movement,
Hmm.
and they didn't speak up then either. So my question becomes, what does that look like? Like, who, as we look back, by the time our kids are older, the question will become, what kind of human do you want to be? What did you do back then? Did you say anything? Did you try? Did you have any bit of backbone in that moment? And again, as we talked about last episode with that Bishop Bud, like bravery is contagious, courage is contagious, and you don't ever know how you'll impact one person. So I would also say for the young people, they're very dialed in. I'm not saying I'm hanging with a bunch of 19-year-olds or anything like that, but when I do my activism, when I do my protests, when I do go out in the streets, they're out there. They're just not where we are in our homes, in the more affluent areas. They're living in apartments with four folks pissed off that they can't afford. They're working 3 or 4 jobs and they're pissed. They are organized. They are doing mutual aid groups and community work. Um, the thing
Yeah.
is, what we're seeing, unfortunately, is also filtered through a lens to give us just the headlines and not what folks are doing locally due to the
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
oh, yeah,
local
yeah.
journalism.
I'm not saying that people are doing act. Yeah, I probably did say that, but I meant like
No, I
activism.
got your point
I
though.
get there's
Yeah,
different forms of activism, but yes,
yeah,
I definitely know that there is young people out there that are doing the thing that continue to do it. I mean, I was on the Harris Trail, and it was a lot of young people, young energy, and that's the other thing. And we'll probably try to close it out, but like I
yeah.
mean, we look back at even the Harris campaign. The Harris campaign had more volunteers, I believe, than even the Obama campaign, and they mobilized within 100 days. And so there was a lot of energy behind that, and all those people they don't go away. Those people are itching, um, and we need to capture that energy to turn it into continue these movements and to grow
But
these movements.
as I always say, but who's the we?
Well, we know what that is. What I'm saying.
You know
Like,
what I
there's
mean?
no
Like, no, I'm not trying to be funny here, but oh, we got to catch these people. But like, who's we? Like,
well, the Democrat. What I'm saying is the top of the Democratic Party. I think that you can capitalize off of the people's anxiousness and the energy, um, because I think there's
like
groups that are doing it, local groups that are trying to do it, but if like I said, when I listened to Jasmine Crockett today, I was like, hell
I
yeah,
love
like
Jasmine Crockett,
let's do this. When I hear AOC talking, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. But I don't
right?
see I'm not seeing a lot, and maybe I'm looking at the wrong places, but I'm not seeing men in the party step up. I
Well, I was about to give you two quick examples. I know we're about to close out here, but just two quick examples to your exact point. The leader of the House and the leader of the Senate, right? Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, right? Now, you just gave me two people who are not in leadership positions, both in the House, Jasmine Crockett and AOC, right? And I definitely would think they're voices of change and bold change and progressivism in this moment and willing to fight fascism and calling it out and white supremacy, all of those things. First thing, you have Hakeem Jeffries in the house. He put out a tweet, I believe it was a day ago, and it was like 3 lines where he said, like, the first line was like, uh, presidents come and go, um, something, 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 but God is forever. And people were like, are you serious? This is the best you have? You are not Yolanda Adams? Like, bro, like you are not a theologian. Like your job is to help the people. You have the power of the pen. Yes, you're in the minority, but you can do something. You are literally, they elected you to do something more than put out a tweet like, it's in God's hands now, y'all. Like, what? I could tweet that. You could tweet, anybody could tweet that. So it just shows the point of the men being unwilling to push back. And also these are people who are, dare I say, bought and paid for. Second example, Chuck Schumer, leader in the Senate. Um, with this whole I don't know, run out of time here, but it was a deep seed AI. What's it called?
Yeah, deep. I think it's deep. What is it called? Deep Seek.
Deep
Deep
Seek,
Seek.
Deep Seek
Yeah.
AI. So he goes to a mic and he's saying that Deep Seek AI is of course always a threat to American security. It's all that's been used since 9/11 to really stomp on all of our rights. The threat to national security has been thrown around quite flippantly to take away our rights. But he says the specific term. He says, "This is our Sputnik moment." You know who else said is a Sputnik moment? Mark Andreessen, the billionaire oligarch of AI fame as well. So when we talk about how much dark money pours into the pockets, and even when we say that, like is like we're Sputnik, like we would be the Sputnik, like it would be on us of how they're spending all these billions of dollars in tax write-offs on the people. So again, these are two men who are capitulating to the power structure. And it's funny that the women of color are the ones speaking truth to power. So to your point, I think that was a very poignant, insightful point that the women, the women of color specifically, are the ones speaking truth to power, while these men are out here saying, "Well, it's in God's hands." And you know what? What did you say, Mr. Billionaire, should say? Sputnik moment. It's a Sputnik moment.
Well, in the yeah, and we've talked a little bit about this before. The people who have the most to lose, with like, I obviously in because even black women voters said, like, I'm gonna just take a step back, but I think a lot we realize that that probably at the most at risk, or black women are also at the most at risk.
Always.
It's really not optional. I do believe that they deserve a break but here we got Jasmine Crockett stepping up to the plate. You got AOC stepping up to the plate. Hakeem Jeffries and Jamie Harrison are looking super weak to me right now. Right? They're looking disappointing. Chuck Schumer, that's par for the course. Like, he needs to be gone as far as
Yeah.
his, like, any kind of like leadership
No
seat.
question. No question.
Um, Jerry Connolly, I had to look up the name again. Who beat
Yeah,
out
you guys
like,
gotta look him up.
and he's just not. There's nothing. There's no there's no headlines. He's not doing. He's just
He's there.
He's just trying to live, quite literally
Literally.
live.
Right. Right.
So we get some. Come on. Anyways, we yeah. Make sure.
The moral of the story is it is time for, I think the era of the charismatic leader is over. I don't think we're gonna get another Barack Obama. I don't think we're gonna get another Malcolm X, another Martin Luther King. I think it's time for us, all of us that have these experiences, and we have more resources than our ancestors did. Like they didn't have access to all this technology. They didn't have access to high speed rail or whatever. They didn't have access to the stuff that we have in modern time to connect, meet, and do these things. So I just hope folks take the initiative to be like, you know what? I see what Ram is doing. I see what Payron is doing. And I'm inspired now to help them. Maybe not join their podcast, but I'm going to do something because that's what it matters. It's not necessarily, oh, I'm going to go join this campaign. To be honest, that day's kind of over with. The Democratic Party told us, hey, we're working for middle class voters, which does not mean working class voters. I didn't make them say that. I thought that was a bad idea, but that's the brand nationally, and we can say, well, that at your local level and talk to people, but you cannot extricate the national brand on Democrat at this point, unfortunately. And I know we're trying, but again, what is the Democratic Party saying about all these things that we're worried about? I just haven't heard it unless it's on some other channel that maybe other folks, are listening to, or some other YouTube show or some Instagram that I'm not watching. What I'm hearing locally is about the same thing that we really can't make too much of a difference on. But guess what? The base of the party is having their civil rights stripped away, and the party is mum on that. And that feels, I don't know, like a little bit racist. So we can
Yeah,
be,
the way I see it, they got a week to get their shit together because I guess they're just running out the clock till the new chair is picked. But honestly, like time is ticking. We got
right.
45. If we got 45 days on the Hitler countdown, and
I'm gonna do it in
I'm dead
47.
serious. I'm dead serious. This is a time right now where while we have the technology, before YouTube capitulates, Google
Yep.
capitulates, YouTube capitulates,
Hmm.
before algorithms are set against us to limit our reach, before something catastrophic happens. I mean, all these things happening at once, it leaves us weak. They're about to offer
Correct.
to resign. Everyone in the federal government has
I
been
saw
offered a
that.
resignation. Could you imagine if all these positions are replaced, and they're going to be replaced with extremists and all this? It
Or the,
just
or
leaves
they
us
or they won't be replaced.
or they won't be placed. It just leaves us extremely vulnerable. This isn't a business. This is it's a government. So very well, we could be looking at the internet being inaccessible. We could look at power outages. We could be looking at worst case scenarios of martial law and things
Hmm.
getting blocked completely. We could be looking at the second coming of COINTELPRO,
Yep.
which like honestly, they probably already turned it on. We probably
Oh,
probably already some
dare I
shit.
say they never turned it off.
They never they put it
Come
on
on,
it's
man.
on overdrive mode.
Come
And
on,
yeah,
man.
and don't I don't know a lot about DeepSeek yet, but I will say DeepSeek is a little bit different from a privacy perspective. The type of stuff that people put into AI, I would not use DeepSeek yet. If I'll do some research and I'll let
I
y'all
just thought it
know.
was
But
so interesting how it messed up the markets, right? Because we've been hearing for years about the investment strategy for AI United States, and we need your money to help build up these factories. We're gonna have these big turbines, and we need all these
it's a
films.
I think it's an overreaction. I've been following the market quite a bit. It's
Yeah.
typical in news in China. I think there's questions if it's truly that cheap, that they can run it that cheap, and even if they can, how they use it. AI is there's definitely a bubble. It's the AI bubble that it's not just going to keep going forever. I mean, it's gonna, you know,
Well,
as it
I guess
becomes
I
more
was shocked because I
commoditized.
heard that Mark Zuckerberg was going to invest $65 billion into maintaining Meta's AI, how they do it, and then but then I heard that with the deep whatever was
Mhm. Only
they invested $6 million with an M, and I'm like, and some people are like, well, they're stealing the chips from Nvidia and all this stuff, but I'm like, or maybe it might be a little bit better technology that they
well,
could just run a
a
little bit
lot of
better.
a lot of the chips come from China, and China is trying to capture
Yeah.
Taiwan again, and the chips come from there. So it would make sense that it's cheaper. There's no tariffs that are going to be placed.
It's just like
Trump's already talking about
it,
tariffs on chips and stuff like that. So
it just goes back to our conversation earlier in the conversation. We're talking about American exceptionalism, and American exceptionalism is really propped up on a lot of
oh,
capitalistic fever dreams of speculation. And hearing these things is like, again, I'm not saying, again, I'm not in it, but I've seen America fail a lot
China and
and lie to us
Russia
about that.
China and Russia are licking their chops. I'm telling you. And greed is the death of happiness. And so Wall Street greed, um, I don't know. Let's keep an eye on it.
Yeah,
All
man.
right, man. We somehow still win an hour.
Still 1 hour. It's supposed to be 30-minute show. Hey, folks,
We might have a Thursday show. We might not. We'll definitely be here on
might.
Sunday. Anderson Clayton.
We'll have Anderson on. We'll ask her some good questions, and we'll hopefully get some good answers because folks are looking for that. And I've had multiple conversations with Anderson. She's a really cool person, and she's running for re-election, so she wants folks to know what she's doing, what she's done. I'm sure it'll come up about Perrin wearing shoe running. I'll be very honest with her why I'm not rerunning. Um, but it's okay. It's all right. It doesn't mean I'm going away because we'll be doing stuff like this and I'll still be getting my voice out there because you, listeners, are what's important to me and our community is what's important to me. So thank you all for joining us tonight on Radical Roots Impromptu Show. Rom, you are the man. You any last words, brother?
No, just thank you. Share with your friends, like, subscribe, follow. Please share with your friends. We're trying to get it out there more and more. This was a random show tonight, and we still had some watchers. Did not tell anybody we were coming on, but it was good. So see you next time. Radical Roots signing out.